Welcome in to this live edition of NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us as we have the latest news and rumors from across the National Football League. We'll be talking a lot about Jonathan Taylor today. Also, could Rob Gronkowski be making a return? We will tell you what Gronk had to say and about the possibility of him heading to the New York Football Giants in a matter of moments. Also, an injury update on Jaxon Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks. We'll also look at one surprise cut candidate for every team in the NFL. Have a live Q&A mailbag. Submit your questions using hashtag NFL or Super Chat to get on the mailbag segment. Then we'll wrap up with a little college football talk. At the end of the show today, we will take a look at the winners and losers from the latest round of conference realignment. All that more coming up today here on NFL Daily. As you guys file in, shout out your favorite team and let us know who you root for, and we will shout you out and show you some love as we get this show on the road and get started here on this Tuesday afternoon, our new day, by the way. We're here with you now on Tuesdays for NFL Daily. Myself, you'll hear from Tom Downey, of course, from time to time as well. Both of us doing this show, but pleased to be with you here on this Tuesday. I see Junior, the Patriots fan, Robert, the Falcons fan, Alex, the Steelers fan, Elona, Seahawks. I got X-Gamer, shout out to Jags. Duval, Alex, the Steelers fan. Robert says go Falcons. Wet Noodle says Niners. GM Henders says AFC Steelers, NFC 49ers. You can't have two teams. You can't have two teams. I'm not letting that fly. Tyler Smith-Schmitty is in the house with us today as well. Schmitty, two teams? That's not acceptable.
Especially in the NFL.
There's only 32 to choose from.
There's only 32 to choose from. You got to be rooting for just the one. You can root for the other. You can't call yourself a fan, I think is what the standard is.
Come on, GM Evan. Cameron, the Bills fan. I got Laura, the Niners fan. Alex, Steelers fan. Cool backdrop, Eagles. Bird Gang, Cardinals. Caesar, the Steelers. And Miami Heat fan. Okay, wrong channel, but sure. Let's see, what else? We got Go Birds. I got a couple Pats fans as well from Gandalf and Shelley as well. Who will be the best rookie this season? We're going to talk about JSN in a few moments, but who's going to be the best rookie in the National Football League? There's a lot of different ways you could go with this. Smitty, we could go with a couple of quarterbacks like Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, but I'm looking at in particular those wide receivers. This was a fantastic receiver class. JSN, he should be back week one. That's what it sounds like, that this surgery wasn't something that's going to hold him off too long. We'll dissect it here in just a moment. But Zay Flowers looked absolutely incredible for the Ravens last night. They call him Joystick. He can't be stopped. He's looked like the best player on the field. I really love both these two wide receivers, and I think they're both going to have a strong case for Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely. Those two, I think, stand a tier above the rest of the rookie wide receivers, but there's a lot of other talent out there. You think about Jordan Addison from USC, going to be the nice compliment to Justin Jefferson up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You have kind of a Mike Williams 2.0 and Quentin Johnston down there with the Chargers. He'll be very good. That's kind of, they have a little TCU Legion going on over there in LA.
Oh, yeah.
Guy like Rashee Rice could be the next big thing for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Maybe so. Cameron says
a lot of talent.
Cameron says Dalton Kincaid. Junior says Bijan Robinson. That's a good answer, too.
Definitely.
Shelley says Deuce Vaughn. I like Deuce. I'm going to call him the best rookie, though. Ilona says JSN. Alex says Bijan Robinson. Uptown Dre says Emmanuel Forbes. GM Evans says Bijan Robinson. Let's see. Others, Emmanuel Forbes, Elijah Higgins as well. Who will be the most improved player in the National Football League in 2023? Who's going to take a big step forward? I think last year the correct answer would have been Geno Smith, as he won the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award. But who's going to take a step in the right direction this year? Smitty, I think a lot of people, the popular pick would be probably to guess Russell Wilson to have a bounce-back year there in Denver, Sean Payton coming in. But I'm not so certain that's going to be the case. I like what Caesar brought up here. Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett started out rough, had a nice finish to last year. I think that he's going to pick up right from where he left off, and I expect a decent year out of Kenny Pickett. I would also expect Deshaun Watson potentially to have a nice bounce-back season as well. Those are a couple names. What about you?
Yeah, those are names that definitely stick out, and at the quarterback position for sure. You think about guys who are coming into their second year. A guy like Kenneth Walker. I'm only saying that because I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan myself. Right. Just guys that are getting older in this league. But you mentioned guys who are more veteran, like Wilson and Watson, who had real down years for themselves last season. If I think anything that they do this year would be an improvement. It'd be pretty rough to regress based on where they were.
XD Gamer with a good one. Calvin Ridley. He's been fantastic in camp.
Yeah.
Coming back from the suspension. Trevor Lawrence, he's got thrown him the football too. Jags got a sneaky good offense there.
Calvin Ridley's an interesting pick because, he never really regressed, right? He just took that year off of football because he couldn't stop.
But I think people are expecting him to go from good to potentially elite now.
Yeah, that's what he's looking like in camp. He looks like clearly the wide receiver one there, and tiers and tiers above the other receivers.
Next question, where will Jonathan Taylor play this season? We got an update on Jonathan Taylor we'll get to coming up in just a few moments, but where ultimately is he going to go? He's been approved to seek out a trade. He and his agent can try to find a trade partner of sorts. The Colts would like to get a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor. But as we've seen, the running back market is not too kind to some of these top running backs. XD Gamer says Bucks. Carter says Dolphins. Alex says Colts. GM Evans says Dolphins. XD Gamer says Bucks. Lore says Chiefs. Caesar says Dolphins. XD Gamer says Bucks. Carter says Dolphins. The team I'm watching for, Smitty, that I think he could make the most impact, and I'll talk about this more in a second. Don't sleep on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
That's the team that intrigues me with Jonathan Taylor. What team catches your eye potentially?
I think the Miami Dolphins have to be at the front of the list as well. They missed out on the Dalvin Cook sweepstakes. They really didn't go super hard for a guy like Ezekiel Elliott or Leonard Fournette we've seen so far. No Kareem Hunt. This is a guy, Jonathan Taylor, especially if you want to take a lot of pressure off of Tua, who could really elevate this offense and be another marquee player over there.
Yeah, certainly. More in the chat. Cameron says Bears. Tyson says Bills. Robert says Falcons. Let's see. Uptown says staying in Indy. Will the Kansas City Chiefs repeat as Super Bowl champions? They have the best quarterback in football, the most talented quarterback to ever play the game in Patrick Mahomes. The defense is going to be improved. And you got Andy Reid still around as well. Will the Chiefs go back-to-back? Y for yes, N for no. Cameron says no. Shelley says no. XD Gamer says Jags are winning it. I'd be very surprised. Robert says yes. Laura says yes. Shelley says no. Alex says no. Steelers. Junior says no. XD Gamer says no. John Edwards says no. Ilona says, obviously, yes, they are winning the Super Bowl. I got to tell you this, Smitty, the Chiefs are rightfully so the favorites. I get that. But think about this. As much as we hype and talk about the Chiefs, it took every ounce of them to get by Cincinnati in the championship game, to get by Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. This is not by any means. This is not a foregone conclusion at all. The Chiefs are the favorites, but I don't think that there's this big gap between them and everybody else. I think them and probably about 3 or 4 teams are pretty close.
It's very interesting because you look at the Chiefs last season, they didn't have a roster, essentially, that jumped off the page like, say, an Eagles roster did.
Everybody said going into the year the Bills had the top roster in the league.
Yeah, the Bills absolutely had the top roster
1 to 53, yeah.
And then we found out that Philadelphia earned that title, and a team like Miami had a really good roster. And the Chiefs, yeah, they have Mahomes, yeah, they have Reid, which is the best combination you can have, but their roster around them wasn't as good as maybe some other teams were heading into the season.
They still didn't have the best roster when they won the Super Bowl even.
No, they didn't. The team they played had a better roster. And you look at this season, they arguably got better. You have got young receivers like Sky Moore having another year under their belt. So this could be a better roster for the Chiefs this year. I think they have just as good a chance as anybody else in the NFL and probably a good margin above.
Yeah. So the consensus is no, but several yeses in there as well. We'll see.
They will be one of the last 4 teams, I will tell you that.
They've been to 5 straight AFC championship games, all within Kansas City. We'll see if they do it again. Great question that I have for you coming up here. Bill Belichick, is he a Swiftie? He was asked about Taylor Swift this week and her performance at Gillette Stadium a few weeks ago as she performed, playing her guitar and everything in the rain. And Belichick said, that was pretty impressive. She's tough, man. She just stood out there and played right through it. So is Belichick a Swiftie? I think the people want to know. I mean, we don't hear Bill say that much. But for him to show that type of love and admiration for Taylor Swift, I am fully convinced that Belichick is a Taylor Swift guy. What do you guys think? HY for hell yes, HN for hell no. Is Belichick a confirmed Swiftie? I mean, I saw somebody mention on the Patriots channel a couple days ago on this, Smitty, that, hey, you know, the admiration's there. Belichick can see Taylor Swift works hard, that she's gritty, she gets the job done. I think he is a Swiftie.
I mean, if you look, if you're going by this definition, she fits the bill of a Bill Belichick type
Do
of
your job.
archetype. Yep, you should do your job. Go out there, just don't put a smile on and go do your job. Taylor Swift did just that when Bill Belichick went to go see her on the Eras tour.
Yes, I would say that Taylor Swift has that Patriots mindset. She knows the Patriot way. She embodied it there in New England. What do you guys think? Let's see. Junior says hell no. Let's see. Kyle Donovan with $10 super chat. We'll get there here in just a second, Kyle. Don't worry. Robert says hell yes. XD Gamer says his daughter is all that I know. Alex says hell no. Sosa says hell no. Laura says HY. Shelly says H no. XD Gamer says his daughter is all that I know. Vinny says who knows. Who knows is a very good answer. Hell yes, says XD Gamer. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk NFL news and rumors. Got a mailbag that we'll get to here in just a moment. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat. Surprise cut candidates for all 32 teams across the National Football League. And then we'll end the show with some college football conference realignment talk. With the season getting started this week, week 0, we'll look at some winners and losers from realignment. That and more coming up next in just a few moments. Today on NFL Daily, we do our team Super Chat battle, where if you guys send us a Super Chat, tell us who your team is, and we will add it to your team's total, and we'll keep track and see at the end of the day what fan base ultimately comes out on top. And here were the top 4 teams last week, the Vikings, Ravens, Seahawks, and Raiders. Who is going to win the team Super Chat battle this week? Let's start with $10 for the Jags on the board from Kyle Donovan. My Jags are winning the South this year. Book it. Duval! I'll be rooting for your Seahawks. My aunt is a diehard Hawks fan. Hey, you got 2 Seahawk guys in here between me and
12s.
Smitty. So representing the 12s too. I love it. Rooting for the Seahawks. But Kyle, since you shout out the Jags first, we'll put that in the Jags column. $10 to the Jags. And you all can compete as well and put some money in your team's pile. Send in a Super Chat. Tell us who your team is, and we'll see who wins the Super Chat battle today of the most money for their team. Send in a Super Chat, $ below the chat box. Great way to support the work we're doing here on Seahawks Today. Here on NFL Daily. And send in a Super Chat and let us know who your team is. We'll put it in the team column for you. All right. Without further ado, our first segment, NFL news and rumors, is up next. Smitty, we all set? We about ready to go?
We are ready.
All right. So with that in mind, we will go ahead and get started. Mailbag after this. Use hashtag NFL or Super Chat if you want to get on our mailbag segment coming up in just a bit. But first, we will catch you up to speed with the news and rumors you need to know here on this Tuesday afternoon. Let's go ahead and get started here on this Tuesday edition of NFL Daily. Welcome to NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here. Got 3 big things we're hitting on today. Jonathan Taylor, is a trade coming? We have the latest on the Jonathan Taylor saga. Also, could Rob Gronkowski, Gronk, come out of retirement again? And who could he potentially play for? Got an interesting update on that front as well. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the star rookie receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, he's got an injury that's going to keep him out for a bit. We'll tell you about that and more coming up in just a matter of moments. Let's start with Jonathan Taylor. Where will he go? Jonathan Taylor was given permission to seek a trade from the Indianapolis Colts to try to find a trade partner to take his services to. And basically there's two things that would have to come about of any trade partner. That the Colts are seeking a first-round pick. Probably not going to get that if we're going to be honest with you. But also, said trade partner is going to have to extend Jonathan Taylor and give him a new contract as well. Despite the ongoing rumors, joint practice day for the Colts and the Eagles, Jonathan Taylor was in attendance and still there with the Indianapolis Colts organization. Phil Yates of ESPN had this to say about where things stack up right now. The Colts seemingly do not want to pay Jonathan Taylor a top market deal to keep him, but do want someone else to trade them a first-round pick, which likely comes with the expectation of a massive extension. The team I'm watching for that could be aggressive and make a move, that might be the most intriguing of anybody out there, is the Buffalo Bills. Watch out for the Bills. If they make a trade for Jonathan Taylor without giving up too much, okay, if it doesn't cost them other players that weaken the roster, they just give up picks, they might be the favorites to win it all. Remember the discussion about the Buffalo Bills entering 2022? It was that the Bills had the best roster from 1 to 53. And obviously things didn't work out. They got knocked out in the divisional round by the Cincinnati Bengals. The thing that got exposed with the Buffalo Bills was they didn't have the playmakers that the Cincinnati Bengals did. Well, all of a sudden you had Jonathan Taylor to the mix, and that's a game changer. That changes everything for the Buffalo Bills potentially. I know that the run game isn't bad, but they could go up a whole other notch if they add Jonathan Taylor to the fold. That's the team that piques my interest. Where will Jonathan Taylor play this season? Weigh in. Tell us in the comments section where you think he's going to go. Is it back in Indy, or does he get a trade and move on somewhere else? Weigh in. Tell us what you think in the comments section, the team that Jonathan Taylor ends up with, and let us know in the comments section below. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, you will get a 125% deposit bonus when you enter the promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Put $100 down and get $125 to spend for free. The odds on Jonathan Taylor's next team right now, the Dolphins are the favorites at 2-1. Missed out on Dalvin Cook. Could they go with Jonathan Taylor potentially? The Chicago Bears, we know they have a lot of money and a lot of capital to spend. The Bills, the team that I like that piqued my interest, they're at 5-1. The Ravens at 7-1. The Ravens, remember, J.K. Dobbins isn't real happy about his situation right now. And then there's the Denver Broncos. New head coach Sean Payton, Russell Wilson's there. They're at 8-1. Place your bets now on the NFL, the MLB, soccer, motorsports, golf, and more at chatsports.com/bet, promo code NFL Daily. Rob Gronkowski, could he be making a return to the National Football League and unretire for the second time in his career? In an interview with Kay Adams of FanDuel TV over the last few days, Gronk speculated about a return to the NFL, and for one team in particular. Was it his former team, the New England Patriots? Was it the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? No. In fact, he said it was his hometown team, referring to the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, yeah, he can't get me out of retirement, but he would have the best chance to get me out of retirement. And then asked more about the Giants. He said that would be pretty wild. I always believe that having two tight ends makes the defense have the most difficult time. If you have two tight ends, I think that can make an offense unstoppable. And think about when he and Aaron Hernandez were together. That was the best point of his career, when he had a running mate like Hernandez on the other side of the tight end spot. Now, you put him in the Giants offense. Remember, you got Darren Waller there already. And you pair up Gronk and Waller, all of a sudden this Giants offense would be absolutely incredible. But at the same time, too, what makes it hard for me to believe about the possibility of Gronk coming back to the NFL, I know he mentions the Giants and Daboll and all that being his hometown team. I understand that. But going to the Giants after the Hall of Fame career he's had in New England and doing things the Patriot way, and I know he moved on from New England and he went to Tampa Bay there for a bit, but it would almost feel like a betrayal. It wouldn't feel right to see Gronk in a Giants uniform with the history that he has, quite frankly, with the Patriots and the Giants there. To me, it just wouldn't feel right. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Gronk ever going to play football again? Does he play for a team like the Giants or come back home to New England or somewhere else? What do you guys think? Weigh in the comments section. Tell us what you believe. Will Gronk ever play football again? Chime in the comments section. Let me know. Y for yes, in for no. How you feel about that possibility. Now, as far as the New York Football Giants go, Giants head coach Brian Daboll downplayed the possibility of signing Rob Gronkowski. He said, kind of hold your horses here, folks. Listen to this, what Daboll had to say about Gronk. He said, I'm close with Rob. I have a lot of respect, admiration. I coached him for 4 years. He's a good friend. We've talked. I'm not saying we've talked about that, but he's a close friend. When you coach someone for 4 years and he's a very productive player for you and a really good person, we're from the same town, I wouldn't read too much into that. So, from Daboll's standpoint, he doesn't seem to think that it's much of a possibility. I'll say this, when it comes to Gronk, if Gronk wants to play and gets in football shape, granted he did lose a lot of weight as he's now on the NFL on Fox, and he's terrific with Terry and Michael and Howie and those guys. He's a natural on the television set. If he can get in football shape, I think he can still be an asset for a team that needs him. If he wants to play, if he's made up his mind that he wants to go out there again, he can still be a good football player. Can he be the player that he was at the prime of his career? Probably not, but he can still be a valuable piece as far as I'm concerned. The resume for Gronk is as good as any tight end we've ever seen. A 4-time Super Bowl champion, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a member of the NFL's 2010s All-Decade Team. Gronk did everything in his NFL career, to say the least. He was just incredible, just unstoppable, one of the greatest to ever do it. And the numbers of what Gronk did in his NFL career were pretty spectacular, too. You look at his statistics, 621 receptions, over 9,000 yards. He averaged 15 yards a reception and had 92 career touchdowns. Gronk was great. Personally, I don't think Gronk's ever going to play football again. We've seen him tease coming out of retirement a couple times now. Even when he retired the first time, he had been teasing that and everything. I'll be honest with y'all. I think Gronk loves the attention. I think he loves being talked about in the media and in the news about a possible comeback. I don't see it happening. I think that time has come and gone. But I got to tell you, I would be very intrigued if he does decide to change his mind, if he gives it one more go around. What do you think about Gronk when it comes to the all-time greats? I mean, you talk about everybody's pointing their attention to Travis Kelce right now, the job that he's doing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, you got Tony Gonzalez among the greats as well. What about Gronk? Is he the greatest of all time, or is it somebody else out there? Weigh in the comment section. Tell me what you think. HY for hell yes, that he's the greatest of all time. HN for hell no. Is Gronk the GOAT? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Folks, you got to subscribe to NFL Daily by Chat Sports as we're talking about the National Football League each and every day with the latest news and rumors. We also do mailbags from time to time as well, where people interact in our live shows. We answer their questions, and we'll be live during the season on our Red Zone channel as well. So if you want more NFL coverage, this is the channel for you. Subscribe now for free. Turn on notifications so you stay up to date with the latest happenings around the National Football League. Subscribe now for free. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. One final note before we go. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the rookie wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, is going to be out for a little bit after he underwent wrist surgery today in Philadelphia. The injury occurred a few days ago in the Seahawks preseason win against the Dallas Cowboys. More from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Seahawks first-round pick Jaxon Smith-Njigba is undergoing wrist surgery today in Philadelphia, but could still have a chance to be ready for the start of the regular season per sources. Surgery will determine how long he will miss. He hurt his wrist Saturday night versus Dallas. Seahawks first-round pick Jaxon Smith-Njigba broke a bone in his wrist on the play in which he almost scored Saturday night. He will have it surgically repaired today in Philadelphia. So with that said, he might be back before the season begins. Might not be, but it doesn't seem like it's that serious. Does this suck if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan? Absolutely it does. But the fact is, because it shouldn't hold him out too long, that's a big relief for the Seattle Seahawks, that you take care of this now and you're not worrying about this situation later, not lingering on. It's much easier to go ahead and sit on the sidelines, do the surgery, rather than be a problem down the road. He's on track to be Seattle's number 3 receiver. He's their second leading receiver in the preseason to this point, and he could be their top receiver if he was getting the playing time. They've held him back from trying to overwork him too much in the preseason. But the number 20 overall pick out of Ohio State has just been fantastic so far this preseason. His numbers in 2 games, 5 catches, 83 yards, close to 17 yards of reception, and a 48-yard long. JSN has been really good. So what's your concern level with the JSN injury news? What do you think? Are you concerned about how he's going to be when he comes back, how long this will take? I'm not that concerned personally. I know he's got an injury history. People are going to throw out the word injury prone. I understand all that. But I'm not concerned at the moment. What's your concern level? Scale it for me in the comment section, 1 through 10, and let me know. Hit me up on Twitter for more NFL coverage. I'm over there at Tyler Jones Live talking about the National Football League all the time. You got a question you want to send me, want to talk shop, hit me up on Twitter, and I shall see you next time right here on NFL Daily. All right. There we go. So that is one segment down. And we have 3 more to go. Let's ask you now. I saw the comment from Smitty there, so I got to see what the folks are saying. Gronk, the greatest tight end of all time. Junior says hell no. Sosa says hell yes. Smitty, you were monitoring the chat there. People kind of hating on Gronk.
The disrespect is absurd. Listen, I'm no Patriots fan by any means, and yeah, maybe he diced up your team one time. Gronk is the greatest tight end that's ever lived, and it's a fact. It's crazy we're seeing this man get some hate in here. First of all, he's one of the most unhateable, likable athletes of all time. Like, he's an absolute bro. He loves just putting his head down and barreling over people in a game of football.
Get in production to let him know the Gronk cut ended.
What's that? Oh, yes, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay,
yep.
Sweet. Well, no, Sid, you put starts. You need to let him know it ended.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll let him know.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, folks, we're trying to communicate with people back in the office. Go ahead, Smitty. Continue what you were saying.
No, yeah, Gronk is just a beast of a human being, a beast of a football player, and the disrespect just won't be tolerated if I'm in presence.
Yeah, I think Gronk's incredible. I don't think he's the greatest of all time, though. I think that title belongs to Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce has had a better career and been slightly better. And I think to Kelce's credit, when you compare him with Gronk, no shaming Gronk for hanging it up when he did. You know, he felt like he was ready to retire. No shaming whatsoever. But I think Kelce has to deserve credit for the longevity, for still playing at a high. I mean, here we are right now. Remember, Gronk and Kelce are close to the same age.
Yeah, they are.
Gronk is on TV, and the last time that we saw him, he was good, but he wasn't the same player he once was. Kelce, meanwhile, right now, is playing as good as he ever has his entire career at this point. After all those years, I got to give the edge to Kelce for the longevity factor.
All right, so I just wanted to look this up to see how many games they've both played. Travis Kelce has played 1 more game than Gronk. He has about 1,000 more receiving yards, but he has 23 fewer touchdowns.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I feel.
Do you like 1,000 yards better or 23 more touchdowns?
I think I like 23 more touchdowns.
But think about this, too. Quarterback play. Gronk played with Tom his entire career. Comparably speaking, with Kelsey, he had to deal with Alex Smith there for a bit.
Played with Andy Reid his whole career, too. His offense has been pretty tailored for him to succeed. Alex Smith was no slouch when he was in there.
Alex wasn't bad, but he wasn't Tom Brady.
And he wasn't Patrick Mahomes either. So,
right.
But Travis Kelce's never gone without. You know, like, we're not going to say Travis Kelce's ever struggled in his career.
Right, it wasn't like Alex Smith was a bum.
No, he's always been in a good position. Not a Tom Brady, not a Patrick Mahomes position early on. But he's always been in a good position to succeed. The health factor definitely plays a role. But Gronk, on the other hand, he's probably a top 3 blocking tight end of all time as well. So you got to factor that into the equation. Travis Kelce, very much so a receiving tight end, doesn't really get his hands too
Yodon says Shannon Sharp is the best tight end of all time. That's not a bad answer either.
It's valid, definitely valid take.
Yeah. Shannon Sharp would be up there for sure among the all-time greats. All right, mailbag time.
Yeah, let's get another cut.
Use hashtag NFL or Super Chat to get your questions on our mailbag today. Whatever you guys have, we will answer them. In particular, I want to hear about some trade ideas that you guys have and some trade questions. If you got those, send them my way. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat. Super Chats get answered first. Those will go to the front of the line. So if you want in on this mailbag segment, go ahead and send in those questions, and we'll get those started. I know that we've had a few questions come in, but we certainly could use some more. And we'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. But that's how you can partake and be involved as we get this going here, this mailbag segment. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat. We're doing our Super Chat contest today. Pass, good to see you. Good to see you, Pass. Our Super Chat contest today is a battle between the fan bases in the National Football League. Basically, when you send in a Super Chat, let us know who your team is, and we'll add it to the team total. Right now, the leader on the scoreboard is the Jacksonville Jaguars, courtesy of Kyle with his $10 Super Chat he sent in earlier for Daboll. So if you want to be a part of that and put your team on the board, we'll update the scoreboard here in just a second for the Jags. Then let us know. Send in a Super Chat. Tell us who your team is. Smitty, we about ready for this mailbag segment? Let's go ahead and get this thing started. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat to get your questions going. We'll go about 8 to 10 minutes on this mailbag and go from there. Guys, let's get after it. Segment number 2, mailbag time here on NFL Daily. It is NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here, and we're about to do a mailbag where we answer the questions you guys submit to us on our live shows that we do every week. And you may be wondering, how do I get in on these mailbag segments? Well, you're in luck. If you subscribe to Chat Sports, then you can join us for our live shows. Turn on notifications. That way you're aware of when we go live, and you can submit questions to us, whether it's Super Chats or using the hashtag NFL. We got you covered either way. So turn on notifications. That way you, too, can be a part of our next mailbag segment right here on NFL Daily. Our first question this week is all about Kyler Murray. As Raj, the Rabbit, wants to know, will Kyler Murray get traded by the Cardinals after this season? Very good question, Raj, and a lot of conversation being had about Kyler Murray's future with the Arizona Cardinals these days. And think about this when it comes to Kyler Murray. He's coming off the ACL injury. There's a new coaching staff, and they're not running a scheme there that is necessarily suited for Kyler Murray. Say what you want about Cliff Kingsbury, and I do not think that Cliff Kingsbury should have ever been an NFL head coach. But at least that offense was somewhat catered towards the strengths of Kyler Murray. This offense that Jonathan Gannon is bringing in is a under-center traditional pro-style offense that's not made for Kyler Murray's strengths. So with that said, I know the Cardinals are going to pay a lot of money to Kyler Murray, but he's not necessarily the right fit for what the Cardinals are trying to do long term. And then a couple things as well. The Cardinals, they're going to have 2 top picks in next year's draft, likely in position to get one of those top quarterbacks like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May. I think it's going to be awfully tough for Arizona to get out of Kyler Murray's contract or get somebody else to take it on And I believe in Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is still one of the top quarterbacks in this league despite having a down season last year. If I were to guess right now, I think Kyler Murray is back in Arizona at the moment. But I don't say that with a whole lot of confidence. I very well could see things unravel and he ultimately get traded and they go for one of those young quarterbacks. My guess at the moment, time will tell, could change, is that he's back in Arizona next year. Robert writes in, hashtag NFL, most surprising teams this season and most surprising players this season. Very good question, Robert. Let's start out with the most surprising teams this year. The teams that catch my interest, that could make that big jump. I think the Lions are going to win the NFC North. I think this is a breakthrough year for Detroit with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. And in that team, I think the Lions are going to be a really good team, a force to be reckoned with in 2023. I think the Seattle Seahawks take a step in the right direction as well. They went to the wild card round last year. I think they're going to be there toe-to-toe with San Francisco in that division. Meanwhile, the AFC side, I know there's a lot of people hating on the New York Jets, and believe me, they deserve a lot of criticism having not been to the playoffs since 2010. But it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers that they added. They spent a lot of money, got better with guys like Dalvin Cook, McCole Hardman, already had Garrett Wilson. Jets are going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. Dolphins right there in their division. If Tua can stay healthy, they're going to be a decent football team. So those are the teams I'm watching for. Surprising players as far as that goes. I think Deshaun Watson, now that it's been months removed from everything that went on with Deshaun Watson, he can sort of put things in the rear view. And he's got something to prove. I'm watching to see if Deshaun Watson has a bounce back year. I think Kenny Pickett can take a step in the right direction as well. He's got my interest to see what he can do. Those are a couple names that come to mind as far as some surprise players potentially in the NFL to watch for. GM Evan, who's got two teams he roots for. That just makes me shake my head a bit. Nonetheless, GM Evan writes, should New England bench Mac Jones and start Malik Cunningham? Okay. The hype on Malik Cunningham is getting a little crazy. Granted, I like Malik Cunningham. I'm rooting on the guy. On Patriots Today, I believe we're calling it Malik Mania. But with that said, as far as the idea of benching Mac Jones and starting Malik Cunningham, that's just absurd. Okay? Malik Cunningham, they're not even wanting him to necessarily play quarterback. They're trying to give him snaps at receiver. They want to get him on the field in some way there. No. Mac Jones, I think, is going to have a nice season. We mentioned surprise players. I think Mac Jones is going to bounce back this year. I think he's going to be better than what he was as a rookie. Him and that Bill O'Brien offense, he's got his poise, he's got his accuracy going. I'm all in. I think Mac Jones is going to have an outstanding season in 2023. Malik Cunningham, they'd like to get him on the football field, but I mean, if we're going to be real with y'all, Malik Cunningham is not that great of a passer. He's a hell of an athlete, but his future is not a starting quarterback in this league. No, you're not benching Mac Jones for Malik Cunningham. Back to Kyler Murray. Let's ask you all this. Should the Cardinals trade Kyler Murray? Weigh in, tell us in the comment section. Y for yes, in for no, our pinned comment today. Let us know what you think. Should the Cardinals trade off Kyler or not? What do you think? Tell me. Vince writes in, which NFC teams would make it to the playoffs if they were in the spot of the New England Patriots? That's a very good question. To me, it would be interesting because you have three playoff caliber teams as is, right? With the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills. And if I were to take NFC teams in their spot who would still make the playoffs, I think if they had to play that schedule, essentially, I think San Francisco, Philly, Dallas, Seattle, maybe the Giants. But, I mean, beyond that, it's hard to say for sure what NFC teams could make the playoffs if they were in the same spot the Patriots. Patriots got their work cut out for them. It's a long road ahead to get to the postseason. That team's got some decent players. They just don't have any great players on that Patriots roster. Alex writes in, the Steelers' record prediction. What will it be for the Steelers in 2023? What we've seen from Mike Tomlin, there in Pittsburgh over the years. Although it's been a while since Tomlin won a playoff game, they never are bad. They're just consistently average the last few years. As I've said before, I think Kenny Pickett's going to take a step in the right direction. I like the talent around him. I think George Pickens could be a top 5 receiver by the end of the year this year. That defense is really good as well. They got some top players on that defense. Steelers might surprise some people. I think the Steelers get 9, maybe 10 wins potentially in 2023. I think if you're a Steelers fan, if you get that many wins, you ought to be very pleased. And I think it's very much in reach. They're going to have some things go their way, some luck on their side. The Browns have to underperform a little bit, but it can be done. Jim Evan writes in, Colts trade Michael Pittman Jr. and Jonathan Taylor to Arizona for 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. You know, here's the thing. I'll say this. When it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, they are way closer to the bottom than they are the top. Okay? And the Arizona Cardinals are also in the same position, way closer to the bottom than they are the top. Both teams are arguably competing for that number 1 overall pick with each other. I do not think the Colts want to help the Cardinals or vice versa. I don't see a trade going on between those two because they're competing for the same thing. Now, the Colts with Anthony Richardson, they're not necessarily going to be looking for a quarterback next year unless all goes to hell with Richardson. But no, I would be surprised if that type of deal went down with Arizona, GM Evan. Speaking of rookies, we mentioned Anthony Richardson. We have rookie jerseys on sale. Your favorite rookies like Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, Devin Witherspoon, among others. We got all of them. Bijan Robinson as well, very popular jersey. And they're all for sale at one place, chatsports.com/NFL jersey. You can get yours now while supplies last and still get it in time for football season. So if you're a fan of one of these teams, now's a great time to get these rookie jerseys because you can wear them for their entire careers when they ideally still play for your team the entire time. Or maybe you're a college football fan and your favorite college player got drafted and you want to keep rooting them on in the pros. Whatever it may be, we got all sorts of selections, all the rookies to choose from. Get yours today. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey while supplies last, just in time for the season. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey to get yours now. Got time for a couple more questions. Let's go to Vince. Vince writes in, what does the Texans need out of C.J. Stroud to make the playoffs if Will Anderson, Dell, and Stingley ball out? The Texans, I think, are going to take a big step the right direction. But they are still very flawed in some areas, particularly the offensive line there with the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud would need to just play consistent. Will Anderson, I think, would need to play at a Pro Bowl level. Tank Dell, I think, would need to potentially lead that team in receiving. Stingley's got to look like one of the best corners in the league. A lot would have to go their way for the Texans to make the postseason. Luckily for them, though, they are in a pretty weak division. They would also need the Jags to somewhat struggle and underachieve potentially. But Houston, I think you're going to like the product you see on the field. It's going to be improved this year. Last question. This one from Ben. Ben writes in, Stephon Diggs to Dallas. Could we afford it, and what would it take? So it doesn't seem like Diggs is too happy with things in Buffalo right now. I still think the Bills are too invested to move on from Diggs at the moment unless things really change. But, you know, I would say it would probably require a first and then a couple other picks. Then you got to pay Diggs. It wouldn't be cheap, but I would be shocked. I would be shocked if Diggs ended up in Dallas. I lied. I got one more question for you. Maxim99 writes in, hashtag NFL, does Josh Jacobs ending his holdout end his chances of getting traded? For now, yes, it does. Josh Jacobs will play for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2023. Will he play beyond that next season? Remains to be seen. Probably not, would be my guess, that he moves on after this upcoming season. The Raiders are going to be in complete rebuild mode after this year. Jacobs isn't going to fit their timeline. He's going to be an older running back looking for that second contract. I think they'll move on after this year. But I do think he is going to end up playing for the Las Vegas Raiders, that they'll put things aside for now, and they'll figure it out later. What are the chances the Raiders move Josh Jacobs before the season starts? Scale it for me in the comments section. 1 through 10, what do you think the odds are of Josh Jacobs leaving Las Vegas? All right, it is halftime here on NFL Daily. Coming up next, we have surprise cut candidates. One player for every team across the NFL. But first, let's ask you, should the Cardinals trade Kyler Murray? Check it in the chat. Junior says yes. Infested Beast 87 says yes. Vince says yes. What about you, Smitty? What do you think? Should the Cardinals trade Kyler Murray?
He is such a Washington Commander, or whatever their name will be next season. He is so out of there. Think about this. If this team is, 3-8 at like best, week 11, Kyler Murray is supposed to come back around week 12, week 13, or week 14, somewhere around there. If they're 3-8, and they could very much likely be worse, there's no way they're going to play him this season. They're going to be the worst. They're going to have the worst record in the league. They're going to be in prime position to draft a quarterback, and they're going to be in prime position to trade Kyler Murray. It'll be a no-brainer. They'll get something for him next season after he's healthy. He's a Packer. He's a Commander. He's a whatever.
You're already giving up on Jordan Love?
No, he's shown signs of actually being pretty decent in the preseason, but I had this predisposed opinion that he'd be a Packer a few weeks ago. That's kind of why I just said that. More likely a Commander, though.
Oh,
or
man.
Whatever they'll be.
I don't think he gets traded right now, but
my
mind could change later.
No, I think after the season is definitely
I'm not convinced right now that he gets traded after the season.
Oh, you're
but
not?
my mind could be changed. No. Because personally, I think Kyler Murray is going to bounce back and have a decent season. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I at the moment I think they're going to hang on to him. But we'll see. A lot of time could change. Everett says no. Wet Noodle says no. Ben says yes. LeJuggerNot says Kyler Murray goes to Miami. Okay. We'll see how that all plays out. Up next, surprise cut candidates. We will name a few players that could shock the world and ultimately be cut. And Smitty, as we're getting ready for this segment, I know that you've already seen the names, so we won't tease too much. But just to give an idea for the folks out there, when we talk about surprise names, we got some big names on this list.
Oh, when I saw the names at first, there are some big names on there that I did not expect at all. So you guys are going to want to tune in.
Yes, it is going to be intriguing. Your mind might be blown with some of these names here. And to give a little inside baseball perspective, too, we surveyed the entire Chat Sports staff and the teams they cover, and these were the names they sent us. So before you're screaming at me and saying, Tyler, you're such a dumbass, no way these guys have any chance of getting cut. If you're going to blame me, you got to blame everybody at Chat Sports. So we're all in this together, as Disney Channel and Zac Efron once told us at one point.
Absolutely.
So, with that said,
yeah, you're going to want to wait to the 8 or 10 minutes or so until near the end of the video, because there is a name on there that I'm very shocked at.
There is one name at the very end that is a big shocker. That's what we call a tease in the biz. So up next,
right.
Surprise cut candidates, one player for all 32 teams that could ultimately get cut on cut down day here in a couple of weeks. We'll break those down for you right now here on NFL Daily. It is NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones, your fearless leader, here with you as we are breaking down cut candidates, surprise cut candidates for all 32 teams across the National Football League. We have surveyed our staff here at Chat Sports and the teams that they cover, and they sent us back a list of surprise cut candidates, one for every team that could ultimately be gone when we get to cut down day, when the roster goes from 90 to 53. So without further ado, let's get started in the NFC East. That's where we find Kelvin Joseph of the Dallas Cowboys on the list. Joseph, better at the nickel spot, but still ultimately might not make it for Dallas with where their needs are at right now. The New York Giants, that's where we find Sterling Shepard, the former Oklahoma Sooner, was out for much of last year with an ACL injury. And as he's made his return to New York, he's been kind of passed up on the depth chart, forgotten about of some sorts as time has gone on. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Eagles, that's where we find Nicholas Morrow at the linebacker position, currently getting beat out by Cunningham as well as Jacoby Dean for playing time. And then for the Washington Commanders, that is where we find Rashad Wildgoose at the corner position, who has had a very disappointing preseason to this point. I mean, you look back at that second preseason game against the Ravens. The Ravens were playing third and fourth string quarterbacks, and they picked that Commanders defense apart. To the NFC North we go now. That's where we find running back Deonta Freeman with this spot. And what we've seen with Chicago, Khalil Herbert's going to be your starting running back, and they've had other guys like Roschon Johnson emerge that could take playing time away that might make it difficult for Foreman to have a spot. To Detroit, that's where we find Big Levi O potentially on the list. And what's going on with Detroit, you got to revamp defense, and he struggled with injuries, so it might just not work out to have a spot to hold on for Levi there in Detroit. To Green Bay, the running back position, that's where we find Patrick Taylor on this list. And with Green Bay, we have seen they've had a dynamic 1-2 punch with Aaron Jones and Dillon there the last couple of years. A.J. Dillon, who they drafted from Boston College. And what they did last year at the beginning of the season was they went with those two guys and they worked them to death, basically. And Patrick Taylor initially didn't make the 53-man roster. Well, with that said, what you're likely to see is they do the same thing again, where Dillon makes the roster there, and along with Jones. And then until there's an injury or something, then they possibly bring back Patrick Taylor or somebody else. The Vikings, we find corner Andrew Booth on this list. Not too long ago, this guy was a second-round pick, but as Brian Flores has come in as the new defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, it hasn't necessarily been a scheme fit for what Flores is looking for defensively in that corner room and what Andrew Booth brings to the table. We are through a couple divisions, still got more to go, but our pinned comment today, name a surprise cut candidate from your favorite team. Here's your chance to weigh in. Tell us in the comments section who your team is and who is a guy that could surprise everybody and ultimately get cut. Whether it's somebody we've talked about on today's show or somebody else, weigh in the comments section. Give me one player who could be a surprise cut candidate from your favorite team. To the NFC South we go. That is where we find corner Trey Flowers on this list. And in Flowers' case, this is a guy that might just not have enough room on the roster as the Falcons are showing some depth at the corner position. To Carolina, that is where we find Xavier Woods at the safety spot. And if the Panthers move on from Xavier Woods, they could save $4.5 million against the cap potentially if they were to make this move. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints, Will Lutz is on this list, and I know that Will Lutz has become kind of a household name of sorts, especially among the NFC South, but it looks like that he's getting beat out by their rookie kicker, Blake Group, for that spot. It looks like that Blake is ultimately going to win that job, and Will should be a free agent. Can't imagine him being a free agent for too long, though. Somebody might pick him up. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers, that's where we find wide receiver David Moore. And you look at what's going on with the Buccaneers. We've seen Palmer and Jarrett are emerging. Russell Gage is out for the rest of the season. He got injured last week. So that might be the saving grace for David Moore to still land a roster spot, but it's not looking too great for him. We mentioned household names. How about Colt McCoy? College legend at the University of Texas. He's had a decent career as a backup, and he's won a lot of games as a backup quarterback over the years. Remember, he was part of that class with Bradford, and Tebow, and Jimmy Clausen and company. He's the last one standing, and he's had a decent career as a backup. But you look at the Arizona Cardinals, and Clayton Tune, their rookie out of Houston, is emerging, and it looks like he would likely be the backup there to start potentially with Kyler Murray around. A lot of it depends on how long it takes for Murray to officially recover there. To the Los Angeles Rams, and that is where we find corner Robert Rochelle at this spot. And basically the problem with Rochelle is that the Rams are kind of looking for more size in the secondary right now, not necessarily the right fit for what the Rams want to do on defense. To the San Francisco 49ers, that's where we find kicker Jake Moody. Yes, the former third-round pick might already be on the way out. The mustache might not be his saving grace, as Jake Moody missed 2 field goals, 1 PAT, and barely made a chip shot game-winning field goal in the preseason so far. Moody has not looked good. To Seattle we go. That is where we find Mr. Young, a former 7th-round pick last year, earned his way on the 53-man roster. There was a lot of excitement about what he could potentially bring to the Seahawks team. But now you've had the emergence of Jake Bobo, the undrafted free agent out of UCLA, who has led the Seahawks in receiving. And Young is coming off just a bad night in the last preseason game for Seattle on Saturday. That leaves him in limbo, where he ultimately could be gone in what is a much more stacked receiver room in Seattle than what we've seen in years previously. We shift gears now to the AFC. That's where we find Buffalo running back Latavius Murray. And with talk about the Bills potentially wanting to upgrade the running back position, maybe for a guy like Jonathan Taylor potentially, Latavius Murray could ultimately be the odd man out. Remember, they already have Cook and Harris as well, but Murray might be the one on the chopping block. To Miami, that's where we find Chosen Anderson, formerly known as Robbie Anderson. And the thing with Chosen is the contract situation. He has no guaranteed money, so it would be easier for him to be able to move on from. And he's had a very quiet preseason. He's kind of been missing in action of some sorts for Miami there. Meanwhile, the Patriots. The Patriots on our list is Trace McSorley. And what I think is the surprise here is not necessarily him not being one of the top quarterbacks for New England, but the fact that this guy started NFL games last year in Arizona and all of a sudden might not have a spot on a 53-man roster. It went from 100 to 0 real quick for Trace McSorley, and there's a lot of hype about Malik Cunningham. We know about the new emergency QB3 rule, and if you're the Patriots, you're probably better off, if you're going to have an emergency 3, going with the young cat and Malik Cunningham, who's certainly caught a lot of attention, a great athlete in his own right, than sticking with McSorley, who really struggled last year in Arizona. The last team in this division, the New York Jets, we find Bryce Hall. Not Breece Hall, but Bryce Hall. What's going on there with the Jets is that Hall is quickly becoming an afterthought. When you have guys like Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed and among others there, Bryce Hall is kind of being pushed to the wayside of some sort. So watch out there. We'll see if he ultimately makes the team or not. Name a cut candidate from your team that you think should make the roster. Who is kind of on the bubble that we are sitting here and we're not sure is ultimately going to make it or not? Give me one name, a guy you're rooting for on your favorite team that you'd like to see end up making the roster. That's a roster bubble candidate. Give me a name that comes to mind. Let us know in the comments section below. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. You go to chatsports.com/bet. You can get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, get $125 to spend for free at chatsports.com/bet when you enter that promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Odds for the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are the favorites, plus 600. Philadelphia, plus 700. Can we see a Super Bowl rematch there? Meanwhile, the Bills at plus 900. 49ers and the Bengals at plus 1,000. If you want to go ahead and place a future on the Super Bowl, or if you want to bet on some weekly action here in the preseason, or maybe you want to bet on what's going on in Major League Baseball, golf, motorsports, soccer, whatever it may be, BetUS is the place to do it. Go to chatsports.com/bet, promo code NFL Daily for that 125% deposit bonus. To the AFC North we go. There was a lot of hype about James Prochet at one point there in Baltimore and the role that he would have with that team. Things have kind of gone downhill since. Had an awful preseason game on Monday night against Washington, and he keeps falling down the depth chart, getting passed up piece by piece. Right now, he would be lucky just to be the number 5 receiver potentially for Baltimore if he can make the roster. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, we find offensive lineman Jackson Carman. And here's the deal with Carman. He just isn't good. And the talent around him in Cincinnati, I know that the Bengals have had a lot of question marks with their offensive line over the years, but they've greatly improved. The Bengals have made tremendous progress with that group, while Carman hasn't. He could be on the way out. For the Browns, that's where we find Jakeem Grant at the wide receiver spot. Missed all of last year with a torn ACL. He agreed to take a pay cut, and even then, there still might not be a spot for him there in Cleveland. The final team of the AFC North, that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is where we find center Kendrick Green, former third-round pick. He's been a major disappointment so far in the preseason. Just has not lived up to the expectations he could ultimately be on the way out. To the AFC South, let's start with the Houston Texans and Brevin Jordan at the tight end spot. Shown some promise, but injured all offseason. Not a great blocker as well. Might not necessarily be what the Texans are looking for. The Colts wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie makes this list. And I know some people are talking about McKenzie potentially being a starter there for Indianapolis, but think about this. You already have Pittman, you got Perryman, you got Downs. Where does McKenzie fit into that bunch? The Jags, that's where we find JaMycal Hasty at this spot. Jags have a loaded running back room led by Travis Etienne and company. And then Johnson and Connor and others. Is Hasty going to beat out those guys there? He might ultimately be on the chopping block. To Tennessee, Malik Willis. Yes, Malik Willis. Third-round pick last year. And we already know that the Titans have kind of already mentally moved on from Malik Willis as they're going forward with Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis. And I can't imagine there being much of a trade market for Malik Willis. From what we saw last year, he did not look good. And what we've seen so far this offseason in camp and everything, Willis hasn't done that great either. Why would anyone give up assets for Malik Willis at this point in time? To me, that might be a deal where Tennessee, with a new GM and everything, just cuts their losses and moves on and says, we're done with Malik Willis. We're only going to carry 2 quarterbacks. Tannehill and Levis are our guys. What do you guys think? Will the Titans keep Malik Willis? Is he going to be back in Tennessee at the start of this season? Weigh in the comment section. Y for yes, in for no. Is Willis back or not? What do you think on Malik Willis? Tell me what you feel one way or the other. Folks, you got to subscribe to Chat Sports as we cover the NFL each and every day with the latest roster moves, cuts, and more. Anytime there's something big that happens in the NFL, you know we're going to stop what we're doing. We're going to make you a video, and we're going to break it all down for you here on NFL Daily. This is the place to be if you're a huge NFL fan. You ain't alive if you ain't subscribed to NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Subscribe now, turn on notifications so you stay up to date what's going on across the National Football League. To the AFC West, our final division, Albert O. Man, it has been quite the fall from grace for Albert O. He went from being the top tight end there in Denver, tight end 1, to now all the way falling to tight end number 5. He's just completely fallen off the face of the earth. His days might be over. Former first-round pick quarterback Blaine Gabbert might be done in Kansas City. As Kansas City has been very high, we've seen Andy Reid and company really like Shane Buechele. And if they go with 2 quarterbacks, they might rather go with the younger guy in Shane Buechele than Blaine Gabbert potentially for that spot. The biggest name of the entire show, Khalil Mack, makes our surprise cut candidates list. Here's the deal with Khalil Mack. He's owed $16.6 million this upcoming season. And if you move on from him, you're looking at a cap casualty situation. Maybe you even just renegotiate and get him to take less money potentially. But the truth of the matter is this. Although Khalil Mack might end up being a Hall of Famer and all, the production that the Chargers are paying for, they're not getting. He's not having those double-digit sack years anymore. Khalil Mack has taken a step back. They're not getting what they paid at this point in time. Mack, I think, has been fantastic, but $16 million and not getting the production of $16 million is a problem for Los Angeles. Final player on our list, we go to the Las Vegas Raiders. That's where we find defensive tackle Matthew Butler. Last year, he was a healthy scratch in multiple games. He's been struggling throughout this preseason. Could see the Raiders ultimately move on from him. So there you have it. That is a look at our surprise cut candidates for every team across the National Football League. For more NFL coverage, give me a follow on Twitter, at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there talking about the National Football League. And I'll see you next time, right here on NFL Daily. Okay. One more segment to go as we're talking conference realignment winners and losers. A little college football talk next. How about this, Smitty? Ben already recruiting Khalil Mack says, yo, Mack, Dallas is no income tax. Khalil Mack as a Cowboy?
I'd be pretty sweet. They are pretty weak in the linebacker department right now outside of Micah Parsons, if you can call him a linebacker. Definitely operating more on the edge.
He's an edge,
at this point. Khalil Mack, I mean, that's a guy who you'd love in that locker room. I mean, as far as a mentor to Micah Parsons, maybe to help him elevate to the next level, that'd be pretty sweet for Dallas.
Yeah, let's see. Jacobs NFL on our question right now. Will the Titans keep Malik Willis? Jacobs NFL says yes. Ilona says yes. I think Malik Willis is going to be done sooner than later. I think that they will move on from him, whether it be trade or cut. Management has already given up on Malik Willis. They gave up on him when they drafted Will Levis. I think they're done with him. Smitty, what do you think happens with Malik Willis?
He will be a USFL legend. He will be so good for the Battlehawks or whoever's in that league.
Yeah. Let's see. Ben says no, that they won't keep him. Let's see. Ben says he looks hopeless. Ouch. That's a little harsh. We're going to switch gears, talk college football now, as we continue here on NFL Daily. It's not always just NFL here. We do love to talk college football as well. Conference realignment has been crazy. This has been the wildest transition we've ever seen in college football with the changes that went on this offseason as we saw the Pac-12 just fall apart as we know it, with the Big 12 expanding, the Big 10 expanding. Florida State was flirting with trying to leave the ACC. Things didn't really work out there. What I want to do as we head into the start of the college football season this week, week 7, I want to look at the biggest winners and losers from conference realignment. It seems like more than likely that conference realignment is probably done for the most part right now. Things could change, but as the season gets going, it's hard to imagine that these presidents and ADs want the distraction, want their players and coaches having to answer for this. So I think things are pretty close to being set at the moment. Things could change, but at least the waters have calmed for now when it comes to conference realignment. So what we're going to do on this segment, we're going to break down the winners and losers for this latest round. When it comes to the parties involved, the conferences themselves, some of the schools, the individuals, we will share with you my list. I got 5 winners and I got 5 losers who come to mind in this round of realignment. We are going to get to that coming up in just a matter of moments. Is this graphic updating?
It is
okay.
Currently, yes.
We're waiting on one more thing to update, and then we'll officially get this started. But conference realignment, winners and losers, as we kind of set the scene and get ready before we start this one. Conference realignment, folks, has been just nuts. the Pac-12, as far as its demise goes, let's be frank with y'all. It could have all been avoided, right? Say what you want about everything that's gone down in conference realignment and the Pac-12 and its collapse. Well, update the bottom line, too.
Oh.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. Say what you want. When it comes to conference realignment and the way the Pac-12 fell apart, no one's to blame but the Pac-12 themselves. This all could have been avoidable. This league could have stuck together. But from Larry Scott to George Kliavkoff, it all was just bad decision after bad decision where they stood in their own way and they got them to this point. So it's a sad day for some, but at the end of the day, I think about this, Smitty, as we're just about ready to get started here. I'll wrap up on this thought. When it comes to conference realignment, at the end of the day, I know people are going to say, I'm going to miss Oregon playing Oregon State or Washington playing Washington State and vice versa. No one wants to admit this, but here's the truth of the matter. At the end result of conference realignment, we are getting a better product on the football field. I'd much rather watch Oregon play Ohio State than I would play Oregon State. Sure, it kind of separates the haves and the have-nots a little bit. You get, kind of like a Champions League vibe of sorts, but
that's like an all-the-time Champions League thing.
Right, but we get a better product out of it. I think there's more good than bad that came out of what we saw the last few weeks.
It's funny because when the conferences are doing all this realigning talks and whatever conversations they're having, it's not even about getting a better product on the field, in my opinion.
It's money.
It's money and it's time. It's television slots. The Big Ten does not play at night. Now they have every West Coast team. They can play at 10 o'clock. They can play UCLA versus Illinois at 10 p.m. Eastern and make a whole new block of money. The same thing goes for the Big 12, who has now Utah, Colorado, Arizona. Not this season, but next year.
In addition to BYU, right?
In a BYU. So they have a couple of Pacific time zone schools, but a lot of Mountain time zone schools now. They can even play later. The Pac-12 just getting completely decimated by this. It's just how it works.
So let's talk about it now. Conference realignment, winners and losers. College football now starts right now here on NFL Daily. It's College Football Now by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here as conference realignment appears to be winding down for the moment anyway. We are going to break down the winners and losers from this latest round of realignment. I'll share my thoughts as we get started right away on the winners list. The chief of the Big 12, the head honcho himself, Brett Yormark, was outstanding with the moves that he made for the Big 12. And it wasn't just bringing in the four corner schools of Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah, but setting the foundation to make that happen with the media rights agreement that the Big 12 signed last fall. And that media rights agreement gave every Big 12 school $31.7 million and also would give new members from Power 5 conferences that they added that same amount of money as well. And by doing so, not only did they get the linear TV rights with ESPN and Fox, but they also skipped the line to the Pac-12. They jumped the Pac-12 and got the TV deal, which closed the door for the Pac-12 to get a linear TV deal in their own right. Yormark, what he did with this Big 12 conference, remember the Big 12 was on the brink of collapse after Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 conference. What does he do? He goes and gets that media deal. He brings in the four corner schools, and all of a sudden the Big 12 is clearly the third best conference in America, and they're in a position of strength that they haven't been in. Brett Yormark did a fantastic job. The future is bright. They got a hell of a leader there in the Big 12. Number 2 on our winners list, that is where we find the Big 10 conference. We should be going to losers. Okay. All right. We'll take that again. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Stand by, folks. Don't worry. That says winners. Hold on, folks. Let's go to the losers list. We go from one genius in Brett Yormark to a guy that's not so much. George Kliavkoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12 Conference, made a lot of mistakes in how things were handled in the Pac-12 and the decisions that he made. Under Kliavkoff's watch, USC and UCLA announced that they were leaving last year. And then what did he do? Well, nothing. Literally nothing. The Pac-12 was not proactive in replacing USC and UCLA. Then we see the Big 12 take the four corner schools. Oregon and Washington go to the Big 10. They never expanded. They had talked about San Diego State and SMU, but it never happened. They never got the media deal that they wanted. They let the Big 12 jump them in line. They tried to push this idea of an Apple TV product for $20+ million, and it just wasn't going to work. George Kliavkoff made dumb decisions time after time, and although he was dealt a tough hand by Larry Scott, he didn't make things better at all and made this decision pretty easy for those other schools to ultimately want to leave the Pac-12 conference. It was a rough outing by George Kliavkoff. He made a lot of mistakes, and ultimately it was a big reason why this Pac-12 conference is about to not exist anymore. Who was the most to blame? Was it George Kliavkoff? Was it Larry Scott? Was it USC and UCLA? Was it the University of Presidents? There's a lot of finger pointing going around. Our pin comment today: who is the most to blame for the downfall of the Pac-12 conference? Weigh in and tell us what you think in the comment section. Back to the winners list we go, and that is where we find the Big 10 Conference. The Big 10, or the Big 18, if you want to call it that, with their latest additions of Oregon and UCLA. And think about this, the quality that they were able to get in Oregon and Washington. I think Oregon and Washington are two of the top 15 programs in all of college football. Oregon has been consistently good. Washington's been to a college football playoff in the last few years. You get some great markets in the Pacific Northwest, and Seattle and Portland as well. And think about this, as far as what the Big Ten pulled off here. Nobody in the league is losing money from Oregon and Washington coming in. They're not taking more of the pie. And you got them in without even having to pay them a full revenue share as well. Both teams are taking partial revenue shares for the rest of this TV contract, and then they'll get the full revenue share later. This was a big win for the Big Ten, and they make things easier. They own the West Coast now with Oregon and Washington, USC, and UCLA out there. Big Ten was brilliant to go ahead and bring in Oregon, Washington. The next on the losers list is the so-called Pac-4 with Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal. At the time of this recording, Stanford and Cal are begging, pleading, somebody, please take us. Whether it's the ACC or Big Ten, and we've heard Stanford could be willing to go without a revenue share potentially. Meanwhile, Oregon State and Washington State, nobody wants them. They're not going to be in a power conference. They're hoping to rebuild the Pac-12 potentially, or they might just end up in the Mountain West. Bottom line is this. These schools are either going to go to a Power 5 conference and not get any money or very minimal money, or you're going to get stuck in the group of 5 and not be in a power conference, and your revenue, your TV revenue, is going to greatly decrease from what you're making right now. That's a big yikes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Those 4 teams are screwed, pretty much. It's a bad situation for all 4 of those schools where they stand right now. A little challenge out there for the college football fans watching us here on College Football Now. We've been increasing our college football coverage here on College Football Now. And if you want more of that college football coverage, here's what I want from you guys. I want to see if we can get 40 subscribers off today's video. My bosses are telling me that if we get 40 subscribers off today's show, then we're going to bring you more college football content. Simple as that. So, if you guys want us to talk more college football, go ahead and prove it. Subscribe to the channel now. Let's get 40 more subs off today's video, and I promise you we'll talk more college football here on Chat Sports. Subscribe for free today and turn on notifications. Back to the winners list we go. That is where we find Brigham Young University. It was a long road to get there, but BYU is in a power conference in the Big 12 now. And BYU, it wasn't just the fact that they're now in a power conference and they're in the Big 12, but now their arch rival, Utah, is also joining them in the Big 12. And they have some neighbors with Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. So BYU took a big gamble going independent, trying to prove themselves that they belonged on the national stage with the power conferences. They got that bid. They go to the Big 12. They get the full revenue share, and they get their arch rival Utah again and some friends out west. I mean, a big win for BYU, a 180 from where they were at a couple years ago. BYU has a lot of potential to really build up that football program and take that next step. Back to the losers list. That's where we find Florida State. Florida State, I mean, they made it very clear that they were not happy with their situation in the ACC, that they felt like they deserved more of a revenue share. We heard somebody from their board of trustees say that it's not a matter of if, but when they leave the ACC. All of that griping, and they're still there. They're still in the ACC, and their revenue share didn't really change that much. They're stuck. And on top of that, there's no guarantees that even if they figure out a way, one way or the other, to get out of the ACC, that anybody's going to be calling them and that they're going to find themselves in a much better situation. The SEC doesn't necessarily need Florida State. They don't have to have them. The Big Ten is looking for AAU institutions, high-quality academic schools. Florida State doesn't fit that mold there. So even if Florida State leaves the ACC, what's the end game going to be? Are they going to end up in the Big 12 when it's all said and done here? Florida State overplayed their hand. They're stuck right back where they are, and they're upset about it, and they got nowhere to go at this point in time. Will Florida State leave the ACC? What do you think? Are they done anytime soon? Chime in the comments section. Y for yes, N for no. Is Florida State done in the Atlantic Coast Conference? Chime in. Tell us what you think in the comments section. To the winners list, we find Oregon and Washington. The Ducks and the Huskies, it got very close for Oregon and Washington of just being in complete panic mode because that week that they were trying to figure out their future, it wasn't until the 11th hour that the Big Ten came calling and said, we want you, we've upped our offer, this is what it's going to take to come into our league. And they found their way into the league they really wanted to be in the entire time. They escaped out of the madness that was the Pac-12. And although they're only getting a partial revenue share right now, it was going to be more than they were going to make in the Pac-12. They get the linear television situation. And then, in a few years from now, they will get the full revenue share. For a bit, Rutgers and Northwestern are going to make more money than they are, but it won't last. Eventually, they'll get that money that everybody else is getting. It paid off for Oregon and Washington as far as that goes. Next on the losers list, the Pac-12 propaganda machine. When the Big 12 was on the brink of falling apart, we heard from the so-called experts, the Stuart Mandells, the John Canzanos, the John Wilmores, the Tony Altmores, even Bill Walton, trashing the Big 12, calling this a truck stop conference, saying that the Pac-12 was in better position to succeed and that the Pac-12 had a brighter future and that the Big 12 wasn't going to make it and the Pac-12 was going to get a better TV deal and all of this. And shaming the Big 12, showing all this elitism towards the Big 12 conference. Well, who's laughing now? Big 12 is still going, booming, going strong. What does the Pac-12 have left? 4 teams, that's right. So for all the people that carried the water, Stuart Mandel from the Unathletic, and John Canzano, and John Wilmore, and Tony Altmore, and Bill Walton, all of you that had all this hate towards the Big 12, that were slamming this league, calling it a truck stop conference and everything, who's laughing now, okay? Y'all are out of here. Y'all are looking for a lifeboat, and the Big 12 is thriving. I don't feel bad for you. You all are frauds. You deserve this. Last on the winners list, prime time, Deion Sanders. It all started with Colorado this go-round, with Colorado announcing their intentions to return to the Big 12 Conference. And Think about this. You talk about the domino effect. Colorado was not going to go to the Big 12 Conference until Deion Sanders was pushing for Colorado to return to the Big 12 Conference. He hasn't even coached a single game at the FBS level at this point, and yet he was able to orchestrate the future of his school's athletic conference, the direction that they were going to go. Deion wanted back in the state of Texas to be able to recruit and those resources to compete, to take on those Texas schools. And Colorado made it happen. And it was very clear that Fox and ESPN wanted Deion on TV. They wanted to broadcast Deion's games. I mean, even this season, Colorado is going to be on Big Noon Kickoff the first 2 games of the year. Deion got what he wanted. A guy that hasn't even coached a game yet, and here he is getting to get his school in the conference he wants to be in. We've already seen Deion recruit at a high level there at Colorado. It's only going to go up from here. Deion back in Texas, that's going to be dangerous for everybody else, and that's going to be a threat for the rest of the Big 12, what Deion's about to do in the recruiting trail in that state. Last on the losers list is the ACC. Look at the ACC with all that everything went on in realignment. As things stand right now, they didn't add anything. The TV contract is still as bad as it was before all this. They're stuck, and everybody wants out. The Magnificent Seven, as they're labeling themselves, are all trying to orchestrate a way out. You got some teams that are wanting Stanford and Cal to come in, and then others that are saying, no, absolutely not. And you get questions about Notre Dame's future. Are they eventually going to go to the Big Ten? It's all looking pretty bad. The ACC is eventually going to fall apart in the same way the Pac-12 did. Might not be next year, but it's going to happen at some point in time. The ACC is in trouble, folks. It's not looking good. Countdown clock is on the ACC. What are the chances the ACC survives? Scale it for me 1 through 10. Let me know what you think in the comments section. The chances of the ACC surviving at this point in time. Scale it for me 1 through 10. Let me know what you think. Subscribe now for more college football coverage. We got you covered here on College Football Now by Chat Sports, talking realignment. We will transition soon and be talking about college football action as things return to the field here in the coming days. We got you covered. Stay tuned to the channel. We'll see you next time here on College Football Now. All right. There we go. So we are just about done. Smitty, a lot went on in that college football segment. What'd you take? What have your takeaways from this round of realignment here?
It's interesting. As somebody from the East Coast, I don't know what's going to happen to a conference. The Big East is safe for college hoops because they don't have a lot of football property as far as what they're doing over there. The ACC is scary, though. I'm a Duke basketball fan, and I want the Duke-North Carolina rivalry to continue. I want Duke to keep playing those schools that are currently in the ACC. This is more than just a football issue. Obviously, the root of it, the reason it's all happening is football, but I hope that other sports, even men's basketball, which is the second leading profiter in the NCAA, will also survive and stay solid, not just become a 3-conference super league.
Yeah, Lord Buddy Bear is calling Florida State to the SEC.
I've seen that.
Okay.
I've seen that.
We're about to sign off. Yeah. Our team of the day is the Jacksonville Jaguars, with winning the Super Chat battle today. Reminder to subscribe. I'll put the sub link in the chat right now. You can subscribe for more college football, more NFL content. We got you covered each and every day here on Chat Sports. He's Tyler Smith. Smitty, I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for spending part of your afternoon with us. We'll see you next time right here on Chat Sports.